Hey, you guys, and welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Jerusalem, Israel, and we continue with Pirkei Derbi Eliezer. This is chapter 23a. There's definitely going to be a B. There might even be a C. Undecided yet because I'm still working on it. This one's about the ark. The next one's about the flood. And then afterwards, again, depending how much of the chapter we have left, because it's a long chapter, it might be about what happened afterwards, right? Before the Tower of Babel. Nevertheless, a lot of interesting things are happening right now. So let's just say the Tehillim before we get into this open discussion. All right, so we'll start 117. Repeat after me in Hebrew. Hallelu et Adonai, kol goyim, shabechuhu, kol ha'umim, ki gavar aleinu chasdo, ve'emet Adonai le'olam, hallelujah. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. Okay, so this last parsha, we are right now in between parshat Kitetse and Kitavo. Everything we discussed last week about all the animals and how to behave and the behavior of people around the world, right? What, comparatively speaking to what went on back then where people genuinely do not care. And comes down to your core. The entire focus of last week's Parsha is all about the animals. And through nature, the lesson from that is how to treat one another and how to recognize God. Because if you actually look outside at nature, you watch these nature shows sometimes, right? National Geographic or stuff like that. Especially what they could do. Like who's camping out there with the camera 24/7? You understand? You're like, that's amazing. You have no idea that this is something like that can even exist, and yet it's all over the world. You see this beautiful, perfect harmony with all the colors and the oxygen levels and the highs and the lows and migration of the birds, and it's absolutely amazing. So this last week's parsha is if you look at nature, if you look at the animals, i.e., they all got marched in front of the ark to come in, and that is equal to life. If you can see in nature, if you look at Hateva, you will see Elohim. It is the same numerical value. Hateva and Elohim. So, and now this week's parsha is Kitavo. So now, if we're going to go out with Kitetse, what? Kitetse lemilchama. When you go out to war, not if, but when you go out to war. Meaning, when you go out, Kitetse, right? When you go where? To war. Where's the war? In this world. The moment, boom, you open your eyes, you're in the battle. You're fighting the battle currently, all the time. This is war. It's an ongoing war. So if you manage to live according to what God gives you over there and according to his laws, i.e. understanding where this comes from, through the true reverence of what God is, even just the idea through his creation, then you will merit kitavo, which is what? Kitavo el haaretz. Kitetse, when you go out. And then kitavo, when you come in. Kitetse, kitavo. Okay, anyway, and with everything else happening in the world right now, it means a whole lot, okay? I understand certain things anyway, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Pirkei Derbi Eliezer. So again, it's very interesting right now. We're continuing on from the fallen angels, the giants. We're going to see different classes of giants. People really like this topic. It's there, but you could already see by the amount of views, people really like to hear about all this, supernatural stuff, even though everything is technically supernatural. But anyway, let's get into it. This one is the ark, okay? So last week we read how God's mercy lasted for almost 2,000 years of the corruption upon the earth, right? Before the flood. God can definitely take a hit. He can take all our hits. That's actually what he does. That is, if we're even foolish enough to believe that he can, get hit in the first place. The final straw that caused the flood, like we said, is robbery, lies, dishonesty, and a system so crooked it would turn the world on its head, which is exactly what needed to happen. So we see this crooked system in the world today. You look outside, you see there's no faith in anybody or anything. Those who have their eyes open, you can never close them again. You can't unsee it, right? The moment you get unplugged from the matrix and you see the world for what it is, that's it. That you can't go back. So we see there's no faith in our governments, any of our governments, and any health system, in the news and the media channels, in the leaders or different factions or whatever. There's no faith in anybody. And this is wonderful. Why? Because this is exactly according to prophecy what is going to happen. All the systems gotta fall. Check, 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 check across the board. So we can't lean on this, we can't lean on that. Al mi nishen, rak al Avinu shabashamayim. Who are we going to lean on? Only on our Father in heaven. This is what God is doing. He is removing our faith and our trust from all the systems, thereby exposing their corruption. You can't hide what's happening anymore. That's why they're trying to put a spin on it, get ahead of the story, if you will, because it's too big anyway. Okay, so what caused the world to be wiped out, save but a few who did not partake in that system? We are all called to disconnect from the world system today. So too, we see the world today: robbery, lies, dishonesty, and corruption to the very foundation of everything that we call government and order, aka the system of the world. Let them do it. You can't change it. It's not your fight. That's the thing. This is God's fight. So stay out of his way. You're not going to protest or doing these things. It's not going to do anything to change it. All these things are there. You have a specific job right now. Most people, even in the Jewish world, who have their eyes semi-open, they're like, oh, I see what's coming. I got to go fight. What are you going to go fight? We are the people of the book. How do we fight with what? You understand? This is God's fight. This is Egypt and the entire world order coming down on us. Look back at them today. Keep your mouth shut, because God is going to fight your fight. This is what's happening right now. We just have to make sure that we are on the right side and that we stick to God. That's it. That's all we can do wherever we are in the world. You know what I'm talking about? So we stay out of God's way, let him do his thing. But you, me, us, we have to build that ark. Then you get into that ark and you hunker down, because the reckoning is already on its way. And you don't want to be caught out in the open when it hits, wave after wave, until the world you once knew is gone. And God saw the earth, and behold, it had become corrupted, for all flesh had corrupted its way on the earth. And God said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth has become full of robbery. Ki mal'ah ha'aretz chamas. Because of them, and behold, I am destroying them from the earth. Like we said, through all the sexual immorality and all the disgusting things that went on over there, everything with everyone and everything, that was still not what caused God to destroy the world, right? Once people started turning on each other, that's where that and all the sexual immorality and everything was piled on top of there, which is, like we see, is happening today. Once you cannot rely on the court system that we supposedly established, it's all over. So it's a matter of time. We see this time and time again in the Bible, right? We believe in God and his Torah, so recognize patterns. Okay, you understand what time it is. Make for yourself an ark of gopher wood. You shall make the ark with compartments, and you shall caulk it both inside and outside with pitch. And this is how you shall make it. V'zeh asher ta'aseh otah. 300 cubits of length of the ark, 50 cubits in breadth, and 30 cubits in height. Okay, so the point is, and this is how you shall make it. V'zeh asher ta'aseh otah. See, I'm using my finger because it's relevant. Okay. Rabbi Shemaiah taught, the Holy One, blessed be he, showed Noah with a finger, metaphorically speaking, please, and said to him, like this and that you shall do the ark. That would be the word zeh. Like this, okay? In the feminine term, it would be zot, right? When we do Agbah with a Torah, we take our pinky and we go, zot ha-Torah sh'osa Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael, al pi Hashem beyad Moshe. And because, why with the little finger? To show that the Torah is everywhere, even in our little finger. So we look at like the part where the guy's starting to read in that section, and we focus right on there. Torah is the female aspect. And why does our text mention a finger in context? It doesn't literally mean that God showed anyone anything with his finger, because God is not physical, right? We understand this, yes, okay. But for our understanding, when we want to draw something, for instance, for a person to give them a better visual understanding of the information, we use a finger, if you will, right? Sometimes I would come with the whiteboard. I'm like, instead of explaining, it's so much better when people can actually see. You get a better understanding that way. So I'll give you a helpful hint and a helpful tip right now that I want you all to implement in your day, okay? Should it arise, but pay attention and do this, okay? This is proven. When someone asks for directions to get to a certain location, rarely today people do that, because you could just look on your phone with all the applications and you say, okay, I got to go here, I got to go there, or GPS. No one gets lost. But every now and then, people do ask, Instead of just saying, for instance, okay, go to the end of the block and take a left and then take your first right. Instead of just saying that, while you're saying this, use your hands and your fingers to not only say, but to show the directions, right? I'm sure I've spoken of this before. Go down to the end of the block, take a left, and then take your first right. When you do this, because that extra little thing that you do, that extra care that you put into answering a person in need, the person is, bottom line is, I'm lost. Can you help me find my way? You see? It's not like, hey, where's this where I'm lost. I need you to help me find my way. So help them. Really help them. Be concerned that they get to where they need to go. So again, you make it slightly easier for them. By making their lives easier and giving them that extra little bit of care, complete stranger obviously, God will do the same for you. You gain extra merit for your time and for your attention. So please try it, implement it, and I want you to see the return on that. For something that could have been more difficult than it was, just got a little bit easier, okay? Just notice little winks throughout your life when it comes to these things. But don't do it for the sake of that return, obviously. I just want you to see that what you're doing actually does make a difference. But you do it because you know that if you were asking for directions, i.e. you are lost and asking for help, that you wish a person would take the time to truly help out and to show you the way. Sometimes it's like, well, I'm walking in that direction, so come with me. Then you can either walk awkwardly one, next to each other, or I'll follow you. Just, all right, here, come. So what? You're new in town? You're from around here? I don't know, but just make them feel more comfortable. Again, you never know who it is that is asking you for directions, especially now in Elul. So here, now, for nothing more than do it for that. When you do it with love, you will receive love back. So when we read the word zeh, this is almost in every context throughout the Torah, it has a deeper meaning. Zeh, 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 zeh. Zeh hadavar asher, that's what God said when Moses, when Nadav and Avihu died, right? And what zeh hadavar asher diber Hashem. Okay. And what is the meaning of this? What's the meaning of all this zeh, zeh, zeh? This, it means there is more to the written description. This is also seen as the oral law. In other words, this is an explanation for this, right? God gave Moses a Torah written by the finger of God. Come on. Okay. And we know this because the written law is incomplete without explanation. I've had some ridiculous conversation with people like, yeah, I live according to God's law, the written Torah. I'm like, okay, so your calendar is totally off. Yeah, but no. Nobody seems to be reading Deuteronomy or beyond that point of where God said, listen, I'm giving this to you. Do with it as you see fit. Okay? Because the written law comes with the oral law, with the explanation. Otherwise, it is incomplete. Go back to circumcising your heart. Knife, cut it out. Because that's what, the written law says, right? Okay, eye for an eye. That one. We can easily read the parameters of the ark as written in the Torah. In fact, you have a few people, I believe, who built an ark according to these specs. Something magnificent, right? According to, the specs of the Torah, got it in this and this. Hold on a second. Now I'm going to give you a big question mark. However, if you remove that which God tells you, meaning the oral law, from the written law, you miss out on the essence of it all. And we can see this plainly in the ark. Fact of the matter is, there is no way. There is no way. I mean, physically speaking, logically speaking, that the schematics of the ark would be able to hold all the animals and Noah and his family together for that long, especially of the water. If the water is lava and the rain boiling hot, you see, it's impossible. We're clearly missing, because if you took the ark, for instance, that they built today, that, according to the Bible, as they say, and you put it in those conditions, it would disintegrate and fall apart in a second. Not only that, it wouldn't fit anything close to what was going on in there. So we're missing something here, you see. And one more thing regarding the oral law, and I've shared this in the past, but in case you missed it, it's so important, okay? When I was in the Messianics, how they do with all the laws done away with, and the oral laws, the treachery of the rabbis, invented by the rabbis, and so on. Now, again, coming from an Orthodox home, I kind of had a very hard time with that. I was always battling within myself, like, well, this is what you're supposed to believe, but that doesn't make sense to what's actually true. So I had a very hard time with this, because after all, like I said, I do come from that background, and even simple logic would dictate that you need the oral law. You need something more in order to understand the written law. Otherwise, how do you understand all these things? And then why are you building a sukkah? According to what parameters are you building a sukkah? Right? It doesn't say it in the Torah. It says you should build a sukkah. It should have the sides and the roof. How do you know how much roof? How do you know how much sunlight needs to come in? How do you know how wide the walls need to be? What material is it going to be made out of? How do you know these things? These things are not written in the Torah. And so you have, Messianics pretending to be Jews saying, oh, look, I'm living according to Torah. I'm like, actually, no, you're not. Because the Jews have been doing this for thousands and thousands of years, no matter where they come from in the world, in the same way. Same thing with tefillin. Where is tefillin mentioned in the Torah? It's not mentioned straight up in the Torah. What about the laws of Shabbat? Without the Talmud, you would not understand the true laws of Shabbat, how they extrapolate it, and so on and so forth. There's endless and just endless and endless and endless. Okay. So I did the only thing that I could do, right? Because I was struggling with this. So what do I do? What do I do? I prayed to God, okay? With all my heart, really. And I asked God to show me the oral law exists from way back when. In other words, show me the oral law from the scripture, right? Because it's got me in the fire. So show me the oral law in the scripture. Now, if you know what to look for, you can see it from the very beginning. The ark being one example, that there is always more, because none of these things make sense. So we take it, oh yeah, sure, but if you really try and build it and put it doesn't make sense, okay? But I took issue with people just reading the Bible and saying, I understand, even though they didn't read it in Hebrew. But even if they did read in Hebrew, there's more. There's always more. And I say this with caution because I also question with great skepticism when I hear people say, the Lord showed me that, or told me that, and it's not rooted anywhere in the Torah. Ein chadash tachat hashemesh. There's nothing new under the sun. But my answer was, and you don't need to be a genius to understand this, no, you don't even need to read the Hebrew to understand this. So what I'm about to show you right now, you could read it very simply even in the English. And I've mentioned this one before. Nehemiah chapter 8, when Ezra brought out the Torah scroll before the people to read to them. So they were reading from the Torah scroll, from the 5 books of Moses, okay? We'll start with verse 5. Nehemiah chapter 8, verse 5. And Ezra opened the scroll before the eyes of the entire people, for he was above all the people, and when he opened it, all the people stood. He was above because it said he was on a bama, right? Just like you read the Torah today, you go on a slightly higher platform. It doesn't mean it was above all the people, okay? He was, probably the most humble dude in that generation. And Ezra blessed the Lord, there we go, the great God, and all the people answered amen, amen, with the uplifting of their hands, like we said, right? And they bent their heads and prostrated themselves to the Lord and their faces to the ground, right? That's humility. It's not this, it's this, okay. And Jeshua and Bani and Sherebiah, Jamin, Akub, Shabtaya, Hodaya, Masiyah, Kelita, Azariah, Jozabad, Hanan, Pelaliah, and the Levites. And by the way, I also give a teaching on this where each one of their names means something. And if you put it even in this order with the meaning of their names, it'll give you something fabulous, but that's not the point right now. Explained the law to the people, and the people stood in their place. Vehalevim mevinim, bina, havana, understanding. They gave them understanding according to what was being read. And they read in the scroll, in the law of God, distinctly, and gave sense. And they explained the reading to them. Were these people stupid that they didn't know the Hebrew or understand what was being read? No. A child can understand the words that are in the Torah, right? So why did the Levites, who are, by the way, between the Kohanim and the Levim, they're called to be the teachers of Klal Yisrael as it was back in the days of Moses. Why did they walk amongst the people explaining them what was going on there? What explanation was needed? They weren't stupid. Of course they understood the Hebrew. Then why do you need the Levites to explain what they read and what they heard? You see, it's so simple. I mean, it answers all the doubters and all the deniers right there in the simple text, even in English. Now, there's always more. And if you want to learn that, that's where the Jews come in. Now, that we prefaced all that, let's get back into the text, because we're going to be talking about the ark and how none of this makes sense. We're going to get into the deeper meanings. Okay. So just again, look that up for yourself, and please, if you got a problem with somebody, show them this. Say, what does this mean? You explain to me what this. Ask God to tell you what this means. The Holy One, blessed be He, showed Noah with a finger and said to him, like this and like that shall you do the ark. Because if it's so simple, then you have people building it today, right? Like they did. But it wasn't so simple, which is why God had to specifically show him with his finger. So the ark that they built today is not this ark, period. As we see in Genesis 6:15, and this is how you shall make it. God showed Noah because Noah still had trouble understanding. So God went out of his way and said, listen, yeah, I know, I get it. It's all here, like this and that and that. He showed him, just like he showed Moses, how to make the menorah, because Moses like, none of this makes sense. So God was actually the one who formed the menorah. The gold was put in there and the menorah, the shape of the menorah came out. Also, we know that the menorah is like, it's curved, right? And yet the Rambam draws the menorah that it's not curved. Now, I've given this class on from Harry Moscov's book, The Ark Report, about you had a Jewish Italian soldier who was rewarded, and he went into the Vatican chambers over there. They said, go and you could look around the treasures. He saw the menorah. He also went blind 40 days later because it's so holy. But what he explained when he saw the menorah, which is actually curved, he said he saw the rays of light, which means that, yes, the rays of light shoot out, but in this reality, it is curved. You see this? This combines time and space and the different realities over here. So, light becomes reality, like we see with the manna and so on and so forth. And like we'll also see with the water. So all these things are absolutely incredible. And these things, Moses is like, I don't understand. God's like, let me show you with the etzba, with the finger. Oh, and again, the Torah was written with God's finger, which means it's so much more than just here, what we have, this is what it is, and that's all there is. God explained the whole Torah to Moses with the finger. So just like Israel, right, okay. So just like Israel counting the new moon when the moon was not visible, right? How would they know? How do you know where's the moon if you can't see the moon? Etzba, extra details. It's not possible without an explanation, i.e. the oral law or the finger of God. Just like Moses couldn't understand the making of the menorah here, I wrote it down. What about the laws of kashrut, right? And all the animals that they couldn't eat. Show me a penguin in the desert, for goodness sakes. Where do they get all these? How do they know what all the creepy crawlers are and all the birds in the world are and all the animals were? It was shown to them by God. That's the extra stuff. That's the oral law. I think Moses saw every creature in existence that were hanging out over there in the wilderness. They did when God showed them. I mean, whether they were manifested or they were he showed Moses in a vision, and then Moses explained it to the people, or maybe all the people saw it, because again, they saw the voices. How do you see something that is non-tangible? God speaks. Okay, 150 rooms were along the length of the side of the ark. 150 rooms were along the length side of so on the right side and on the left side. 150, 150, okay? 150 kenim. I'm reading this in Hebrew on purpose. Olech yemina shel teva u150 olech betzad smola. Okay, on the right and on the left. So let's try and understand from the language what these rooms actually are. In our text here and in Genesis, the rooms are called kenim. Kenim is plural for a ken. What is a ken? A ken is a bird's nest. Ken tzipor. In fact, it says that, where is it? I think it's in Sanhedrin. I'm not sure. Where it says that Messiah is sitting in the bird's nest. Beken tzipor is just kind of like waiting and watching type of a situation. In various translations, they are called, in English, so they're called rooms, chambers, compartments. We'll call them either or, it doesn't matter, but kenim specifically. So let's read Genesis 6:15. V'zeh asher ta'aseh ota 300 amah orech hateva, 50 amah rochva, u30 amah komata. And this is the size that you shall make it, 300 cubits. Now it says amah is a cubit. Okay, that's the length of the ark. 50 cubits its breadth, meaning the width, and 30 cubits its height. Okay? Interestingly enough, ken, nest, as the numerical value has the numerical value of 150. Kuf is 100, nun is 50. So kenim, you have a ken, 150, 150. Interesting. Amah. What is the amah? Amah is equal to 45.6 centimeters or 17.95 inches. This is important because here we have now the very measurements of the ark. So, well, if we know how much, 17.95 inches, and it's this many, so we know the exact measurements. Do you now? Wait for it. Okay, so wait, there are more kenim coming along. 33 rooms across the width of the side, within the side, and 33 rooms in the side across the width of the outside. Now, our sages say that there had to be a room missing, which means it was 33 and 32, because that's where the door went. So by default, you needed something missing, right? Because we read that there is a door over here. So an opinion is that the total kenim number is exactly 365, right? So you have 150, that's 300, and you have 33 and 32, that's 65. 365. Okay, so there's 365 rooms in this ark. In the world today, there have been 11,000 species of species identified, which means that there are probably more out there. Now, species of birds. Okay, now remember, they had to take them 2 by 2s, right? And from the kosher ones, they had to take 7. But let's not even get into the semantics of the kosher ones right now. Let's just go 2 by 2. Okay, so 22,000 birds, right? 22,000. If that's all the birds in the world today, there must have been more then. Who knows? 22,000 birds. Can 22,000 birds fit into 365 chambers? I mean, that's only the birds. We're not talking about the other animals, right? That's around 60.2 per chamber. So, I mean, it is conceivable, depending how big the chambers are, depending how small the birds are. But how big are these compartments? They tell us they're about 2 amot each, which makes them no more than 90.2 centimeters. Here, 40.56. This is 1 amah, 90.2. This is 2 amot. So this is how wide the chambers in the ark were. Okay. Ow. Or 36 inches. The whole thing is 3 feet in total. Could you fit 60 birds of various sizes, which, keep in mind, were much larger than the birds we have today? Everything was bigger then, right? As were the rest of the animals, into a 3-foot space. Can you do this? No, you cannot. Okay, now we got it. Great, now we got problems. Let's solve them. Want to know how many known species of land animals there are in the world today? I just Google these things. How many? Okay, so as of like 10 years ago, there's 8.7. Let's go 8. Roughly 8 million species of land animals. Can you fit 8.7, right? Can you fit 17.4 million animals in a cruise line? I mean, a cruise line is much bigger than what the schematics of the ark are telling us, right? All these questions are great questions, and everything will be clarified, and the answers will blow your mind. So let's just finish going through these measurements, and then all will be addressed. And 10 compartments in the center, meaning they're all 150, 150, and you got 30, 33, and 32, and then what's in the middle? Oh, and you had the different levels, right? What's in the middle? 10 compartments in the center, which were for the storerooms for the food. So you have 10 in the middle, and that's to feed everybody, right? This is the most practical and logical choice since the food source is in the center and all the animals are surrounding it. So it'd be also a lot easier to feed all the animals that way. And there is even a remez, a hint to these 10 compartments in Genesis 21. Check this out. And you take for yourself of every food that is eaten and gather it to you. Now, here's the part I'm going to read in Hebrew, but in the English it is, and it shall be for you and for them to eat. V'haya lecha v'lahem. For you and for them. V'haya lecha v'lahem. These are 10 letters hinting at the 10 compartments that would contain enough food, as the verse says, for you and for them. And there were 5 protected cisterns on the right side of the ark, and 5 protected cisterns on the left side of the ark, and the opening for the water pipes opened and closed, and so it was in the lowest division, and then on the second floor, and so it was on the third floor. Ladies and gentlemen, behold, the very first ever known water drainage and sewage system running right through the ark. You open up the latches, you do your stuff, and it just, the water's right under there. He created the flows over there. So you got 5 and 5 of those. Water was running through the ark, and these sealed waterways that would flush away the waste, while the upper levels, the water would be used for drinking. Did that bother anybody what I just said? Good, great. And you might say, but dude, you said that the water was boiling hot, not to mention salty, and all that stuff, enough to burn the flesh off massive giant's bones. Great question, young grasshopper. Great question. And we are about to learn just how that was possible. First of all, when we learned last week that God heated up the water, that it was so hot, it became the hottest substance on earth, even more so than lava. So it wasn't lava, it was actually water that heated up more so than lava. Why? It is said that because the earth became corrupt, the earth was now angry. The earth is like, what is happening right now? Right? Out of its anger towards that generation, hell opened its mouth, and the waters of the deep ran with anger through hell to heat up and then burst out. So now we can positively say that the flood waters were as hot as hell. Try and imagine what that would do to the topography of the world, okay? If you have water that's hotter than lava, we see that lava, if a volcano erupts after a while, it can create an entire landmass. It could create a mountain because it goes down to the bottom and just keeps piling on. Where is it coming from? From underneath, the liquid hot magma, right? So now what do you do with all this boiling hot water that's melting everything and reshaping the earth as they knew it back then? Try and carbon date that, scientists. So, because of course you can't carbon date that. That's why I'll say, oh yeah, it's billions and trillions and gajillions of years, but you can't measure something like this. That's why the whole thing is a theory, the theory of evolution, the Big Bang theory, so people are basing their education and their knowledge based on something that starts with the theory of. Well, what we got ain't no theories about this. That's why they're hiding all this stuff from you, because then that kind of cancels out what they're saying. You see that, right? It's very, very simple. Okay. So, how could they drink the water that was so hot and salty? How could the water not completely burn through the wood of the ark regardless of what it was coated with? Come on, right? So we'll discuss it soon, but long story short, the water surrounding the ark itself was cool and they were able to drink it, meaning the water was sweet around the ark. That was a protective shield around the ark. Where were all the fish? The fish didn't sin, so they were allowed to swim in the boiling water. Some were gone, though, obviously, but still. We didn't even discuss those because it says that only the animals that sinned, which means all the birds and all the land animals. Dwelling place of all the cattle and the animals was in the lowest compartments. The dwelling place for all the fowl was in the second compartments. And the dwelling place for the reptiles or the insects and humans was in the third compartment. How many people would wish that that was not the case? Like, I'll sleep with a bunch of dogs and cows, but not with all the other stuff, right? Why were the animals on the bottom? Because they are the toughest of all the species. And they can indeed stand the heat. It was still hot after all, don't get me wrong. You know, we read that it was hot, it was smelly, there was a lot going on over there. Nevertheless, if the waters actually were boiling up to the side of the boat, the whole thing would have been done. But still, okay? So they could stand the heat. They're tough like that. The thickness of the air and of course the smell, it doesn't really bother them that much. Above them are the more delicate animals, which are, you know, the birds. And on top of them, on the top shelf, the most delicate and breakable of all creations. Oh, that's us, human beings, yes. And somehow we're on top of the food chain. Weird. Okay, so why do we share our dwelling place with the reptiles and the creepy crawlers? Okay, because of their anatomy. They take up a minimal amount of space. All you need are 2 cockroaches, right? Now, today's cockroaches, anywhere between like, you know, this size or that size, right? I wonder how big cockroaches were back then, though. It's like, yeah, the cockroach. Oh, fine. You know, you never know. Big cockroaches. Okay. Scorpions, snakes, who knows? But they were all much bigger. So, they took a minimal amount of space and air and food and the like. And it's also a humbling thing to think about that we can get crushed by nature as easily as we can crush a cockroach. I'm picking on the cockroaches right now because, you know, listen, they're going to be the only ones left over here after a nuclear holocaust. They'll be coming out from the ground. Yeah, they'll be the only ones to survive. So start speaking cockroach. From here you learn that there were we're continuing with the text, 365 kinds of animals and 32 kinds of fowls or birds on the earth and 365 kinds of reptiles or creepy crawlers on the earth. For thus was the number in the lowest compartment, so in the second compartment, and so in the third floor. As it is said, with lower, second, and third stories, you shall make it. Genesis 6:16. Now, regarding this section of the text, this line, there's almost 2 full pages of commentary. Okay? If I show you, it's like a line and then just commentary, bringing from a whole bunch of other sources. So, okay, it raises a lot of questions and we're going to start getting some answers, okay? So let's look at the numbers we have today, roughly one more time for each category, okay? Land animals, roughly 8 million. Birds, roughly 11 million. Reptiles, roughly 10 million. And insects estimated at roughly around 10 million. Now, we still need to double all these numbers, okay? Now, I got these. So how could it say that we got 365 of this and 32 of this and 365 of that if what we see today, numbers in the thousands, tens of thousands, or millions? Doesn't make sense, right? Or maybe it does. Now, I got these numbers, like I said, from Google, just for an understanding of where to kind of place all of this. Now, we have to double these, like we said, as male and female were taken. And I'm not even counting the 7 kosher animals that were being brought aboard. That's a total of, if you actually really want to take these numbers and all their species and then double them, that's a total of 36,042,000 species on board a boat. That if you saw the real life schematics, you would see that it is impossible. If you took that and put that into what they built of the ark today, impossible. So that's one problem. Another problem is, even the larger cabins are no more than 90 centimeters wide. Like we said, here's 90 centimeters. You want to put what? Two donkeys in here? 2 elephants in there? How can you possibly fit, anything in there? Horses, lions, and tigers and bears. I'm not saying, oh my. Oh no. Not to mention elephants, right? And we're talking about 2 in each. Not 1, 2. Impossible. No, right? Impossible. Not possible. Okay, so firstly, let's make sense of the number here. The Radal says that 365 kinds of animals, birds and insects, were all the prototypes to the animals that we see today. In other words, those numbers are actually real. For example, depending on where each animal is either bred or located, it changes its appearance and it changes its needs to best suit it, right? We see this around the world, how animals adapt. Today in the world, there are over 1,000 known cattle breeds. From 2 cows, today in the world, over 1,000 known cattle breeds. Over 200 dog breeds, 75 cat breeds, while only 3 elephant breeds. Okay? Nevertheless, the animals that came abroad were all clean, no hybrids, according to the splicing of the DNA that the generation of the flood were conducting, as the text in Genesis 6:20 says, of the fowl after its kind, and of the animals after their kind, of every creeping thing upon the ground after its kind. 2 of each shall come to you to preserve alive. Lehachayot. Lehachayot is to revive, actually. That's what that means. V'ne'eman ata lehachayot meitim, and you are faithful to resurrect the dead. Lehachayot, to resurrect. So in other words, you're giving them another shot of life over here. This is just like what we see in creation. Everything after its own kind. Why do we know that we're going back to these days? Because there is no more kinds. No borders, no genders, no thises, no that's, no religions. No... Everything that John Lennon sang about and that fools today are still singing about is happening. Wonderful. Congratulations. I hope you have an umbrella. This is just like what we saw. It's happening today. God created borders, boundaries, because each thing has its own correction to do and part to play. Once there are no borders and boundaries, everything goes to chaos, not according to God's design, according to our own. And of course, there's also verse 19, which reads, and all the living things of flesh, 2 of each you shall bring into the ark to preserve alive with you. They shall be, wait for it, male and female. I guess all the animals, shall we say, who identified as anything else, other than male or female, had to learn how to swim and had a high tolerance to heat. Oh, that's going to happen again. Don't you worry now. And by the way, watch how quickly these crazies drop their pronouns, okay? Or what they identify as if it was an actual ark before the flood. It's like, so, male or female? Non-binary, huh? Well, sorry. Next. No, I mean, right. Sure you do. Okay. Only males and females. No problem. Okay. So let's say this solves the number problem. And each compartment had its own kind and species in it, 2 by 2. Let's say that we're going with this. What about the space? How can they fit into the space like this? The measurements were given. Now here's going to answer these questions. The measurements were given in the Torah. They were amot, like we read, amma, right? Amot is, amot is 1 amma, 2, 3, 4 amot. Plural is amot. As we said, an amma is 45.6 centimeters. Usually the average is between 44 to 48 centimeters, depending on the sages over the course of the years, right? What are they basing these measurements on? So the question is, how can a measurement system not be accurate if they say, well, this is how an amma is, right? Well, that's because the standard by which the system was established changes from man to man. What do I mean by this? The biblical measurement of an amma is from your elbow to the tip of your middle fingers. That's what it is. That's an amma, according to man. That's what it says. And that was what was decided back in the day. Okay, here, let's check this out. Okay, so I'm just I'll put that here, put my elbow right there, and there. What is this? 46. Okay, so it's within the parameters of what the sages say that an amma is. But again, It depends on whose arm you're measuring, right? So, if you didn't have the metaphorical finger of God showing you zeh and zeh and zeh exactly how to construct what needed construction, that means that each builder would have to go by their own arm's length, right? Given this information, do you really think you know the exact measurements of the ark, the Mishkan, the vessels, the menorah, the ark of the covenant, the temple, the borders and boundaries of Israel? Whose arm is the prototype arm that decided what is the exact measurement of an amah? You know, if you use Shaq's arm, Shaquille O'Neal, right? His arm's like the length of most people's bodies. If you wanted to build a shed, you'd end up building like a McMansion. You know, if you took Shaq's amah, if you will. There are midrashim that we have covered saying that Moses was 5 meters tall. That's 16 and a half feet. So you think his amah is 46 centimeters? No, much bigger, right? But it doesn't say how tall everybody else was during that time period, meaning that they were very well could have been much taller than we are today. So if God gave Moses the measurements, how do we know that the Mishkan and all the vessels are not 2 or 3 times bigger than what we actually thought they are? And so, if we are not exactly sure how big anything was, we know for a fact that there were giants in the earth back in those days. Right? And those are the giants. So let's say we're not measuring according to the giants. But we also know that Adam was 100 amot tall. 100 amot according to who? According to Adam's arm? So going by the measurements, he should be almost 50 meters, right? 100 amot tall, so he should be between 46 and 48 meters tall. That's roughly 160 feet tall. And he wasn't a giant. The point is, if your measurement of the amot, if you measured the amot before the flood, everything was much bigger, by far, by default. Which means that 2 amot width, right, of a compartment that would house 2 large beasts would be much bigger than 90 centimeters wide, right? But then again, if everything was bigger, weren't the animals bigger as well? Yes, they were. Obviously they were. Which means that the entire concept and construction of the ark is nothing less than a miracle upon miracle, and you cannot construct it today. In case anyone has any questions about this, let me quote the words of the Radal on the matter. I'm going to read this in Hebrew, and then I'm going to translate this in English. Kodem hamabul, hayu habriot gdolim harbe mima shehen ata bizmanenu. Before the flood, hayu habriot, all of creation was much larger than what they are now in our day. Ukmo shehuchichu hachachamim, just like the sages proved, min galei atzmotehem hanintza'im be'ovi ha'adama, just like the sages have proven from the bones found deep in the earth, hine af ha'amot shehen kemidat amat ish zroa bnei adam beyamehem hayu gam ken gdolim mishelanu be'arkam. So too the amot, which were used as a true measurement according to the arm length of the men of those times, they were much larger than we are today. Hey, maybe the ark was the size of a cruise liner. Maybe it was 10 cruise liners. Cruise liners? Cruise line? The big boats with the water things on them. I never had any desire going on those things. You're trapped on a thing with like thousands and thousands of other people, you know? No. Thank you. Another opinion is that of Rashi, where he says that the larger animals were taken as cubs or calves. In other words, they took the smallest versions of them, right? Not full-grown lions, little lion cubs. Which would also have some, it could add some space over there. But I think we're getting the idea that there is much more than, just looking at this as, okay, it's a regular boat and here are the parameters and everything fit, and that was the end of it. And now, after further investigation from the editions of the Radal, when he spoke of the very large animal bones, I found other fascinating things that I would essentially make many who you would call conspiracy theorists say, I told you so. Behold. Ready for this? Great, let's go. As these bones, I'm quoting right now, as these bones have been found primarily. I want you to listen right now. Seriously listen to me right now. As these bones have been found primarily in the northern countries of the world, like not from the southern part, on the northern part of the northern countries of the world, which are naturally cold, these animals would not have been able to live in such climates. We're talking about all the animals that didn't make it into the ark. And so it was determined that the animals got there because of the flood that forced them from the warmer countries. So they naturally started having to travel north. As I added, it was written in the Zohar that Nukva de Tehoma Rabba, the entrance to the great abyss, is in the north of the planet. From this we can ascertain that the center of the northern part of the earth is hollow. Right? As our texts say, and we've learned this before, that God specifically did not complete the northern part of creation. He says, the north he kept open. That's why it also says, Mitzafon tipatach hara'a. From the north, the ra'a, the evil will come. And also that same opening, it also says that goes directly beneath his throne. Anyway, not the thing, but you see what I'm saying? Okay, so hollow earth here, because from where you seemingly the North Pole, there's a hole there that goes, okay. All right. So he didn't complete it. That's where the north wind or the world, so that if there be anyone that says, hey, I'm God, and people are like, yeah, he's God, so God will be like, complete the north. Right. Didn't think so. Go ahead, finish it. When the waters of the flood began to rise upon the earth, both from the deep and from the openings in the heavens, naturally they, meaning the water, would flow and pull towards the lowest spot. And that is the great abyss in the northern part of our planet. You see, as a result, all the animals or their bones were swept north, and many of these bones can be found off the beaches and riverbanks. So it's like flushing the toilet, and they all go down to the lowest point. Then the Radal directs our attention to the Talmud, Masechet Shabbat 113. Rabbi Ami said, anyone who eats the dust of, and this is fascinating, we'll get to this in upcoming teachings, but I want to touch on this right now. Rabbi Ami said, anyone who eats the dust of Babylonia, it is as if he is eating the flesh of his ancestors buried there. And some say it is as if he eats abominations and creeping creatures, as it is written, and he wiped out all that existed on the face of the earth, from humans to animals to creeping creatures to the birds of the sky, and they were wiped off the land. Genesis 7:23. Apropos dead residue in the ground, Reish Lakish said, why is Babylonia called Shinar, right? They went to the valley of Shinar. That's where they built the Tower of Babel to go fight God, right? Why is it called Shinar? It is because all those who died in the flood were deposited there. Ninaru lesham. Rabbi Yochanan said, why is Babylonia called Metzulah? It is because all those who died in the flood sank there. Nitzalu, Metzulot Yam, they sank over there. The Gemara asks, we said that some say that if one eats dirt from Babylonia, it is as if he eats the abominations and creeping creatures. However, certainly their bodies have been putrefied and decomposed, putrefied and decomposed, and therefore they are no longer prohibited. We can learn two things from these statements by our sages, okay? Written over 2,000 years ago, because this is already in the Talmud, and they're obviously taking it from, earlier knowledge that they had, that they proved. They're talking about things that, right? Okay. Babylon, today's Iraq, used to be the north of Israel. Do you understand? Everything moved north from Israel. North from Israel. Babylon used to be, today Iraq is where? It's in the east. Back then, it was in the north of Israel. When today it's clearly in the east, furthering my belief that Pangea did not take billions of years, but 40 days of God ripping apart the earth, as the boiling waters of the deep tore open the crust with the force that no weapon made by man could possibly achieve. And so when they got off the boat, it was not the same world that they knew. As the atmosphere changed, the oxygen level severely dropped and nothing even came close to the size that it was before. This is why, if you give things more oxygen, they get bigger. We've already discussed this. Google this. People putting plants in hyperbolic chambers. Tomato plants look like bigger than massive watermelon. One tomato. Imagine the world back then, right? Okay, bigger people, bigger everything. The air was much richer with oxygen. And the second thing we learn, and we'll get to this in upcoming classes, like we said, we read in Genesis 11 that they went to the land of Shinar, where they built the Tower of Babel. And the valley where they constructed this tower was where they built this. Why did they choose that valley? What was this bathtub of? It was a mass grave of the most abominable things in the world, of the giants, the Anakim, the Rephaim, the Nephilim, and all this splicing and abominations that they caused to put everything and everyone together over there, right? That's where they decided. They were on a very, very unholy ground over there, and they knew it, which is why specifically they picked that place and the bad energy over there to build that tower and try and fight God. Seriously. Our sages say in various places that the land of Israel did not get hit by rain or the flood, a miracle within itself, yet all the living things fled to higher ground. Many of them ended up in Babylon, which was the north, and then it became the east. Can you imagine the impurity and negative energy in that spot that they chose to build the Tower of Defiance in defiance of the Creator? This is crazy stuff. Guess no one told them that the once living beings whose bones they belonged to said, "We don't want your rain." Okay. We will, of course, also touch on the point that the generation of the flood reincarnated into the generation of the dispersion. They're the same ones, essentially, who built the tower over there. But like I said, we'll get to this in due time. I promise. It's fun, okay? So, look at what is said regarding that generation in Sanhedrin 108a. For all flesh had corrupted its ways upon the earth. Genesis 6:12. Rabbi Yochanan said, this teaches that the people of the generation of flood, mated male domesticated animals with female undomesticated animals, male undomesticated animals with female domesticated animals, and all male animals with human females, and human males with female animals. Rabbi Abba Bar Kahana says, and after the flood, all of the creatures returned to mate with their own species, except for the bird. There's one bird called Tushlami, I don't know, which continued to mate with other species. So, I don't know what this bird is, but don't go near it, because I don't know. Okay, so let's move on, all right? Fascinating stuff that our sages are discussing here, right? As we've looked at many different avenues, hopefully giving us both knowledge and understanding of this arc, the world at that time, the different measurements, how do we measure, and everything else that we want to get into it, okay? But here's the sugar on top, okay? Here's how everything worked. We're back to PDE. Rabbi Tanhuma said, Noah made the ark during 52 years, meaning it took him 52 years to actually construct the ark. Now, 52 is a very significant number, as it has the numerical value of bin, son. Bet is 2, nun is 50, 52. Okay, so who else? Let's say who lived 52 years? 52 years. King Solomon lived 52 years. The prophet Samuel lived 52 years. And if I'm not mistaken, who else was 52 years when something happened? I think Abraham was 52 when he started moving to Israel, which was when he turned 49, 94. Yes, exactly. Abraham was born in 1948 to the creation of the world. In the year 2000 to the creation of the world, that is when the world turned over from the age of chaos to the age of Torah. Abraham was 52 years old exactly, and he started moving into the direction of Israel. Very cool. 52, Ben. Okay. During the Babylonian exile, for 52 years, not a man or beast nor bird flying above crossed, dwelt, or even walked through the land of Israel, as it had to be cleansed from all life. Only afterwards did they complete the time going until 70, until Israel were actually allowed to return, or the Judeans, from Babylon. But for 52 years, no one touched the land of Israel. No living thing crossed there. The Zohar says that the ark was an example of the aspect of malachut, kingship. Within the ark, it was said that a jewel was hanging and it would illuminate the ark. Very much reminiscent of what we learned when we spoke about Jonah, right? God said he in the what's it called? What Lies Beneath. Check that out. It's all about Jonah and what he saw. And there was a large jewel in the fish that illuminated. It said like at the sunlight of the afternoon. So within so within the fish, right? You got that. Okay, Sanhedrin. Now we're going to continue Sanhedrin a little bit. Sanhedrin 108b. With regard to the verse, a tzohar you shall make for the ark. Genesis 6:16. Rabbi Yochanan says, the Holy One, blessed be he, said to Noah, set precious stones and jewels in the ark, so they will shine for you as the afternoon sun. Tzohar comes from tzoharaim. Tzoharaim is afternoon, meaning when the sun is brightest, that's how bright they're going to shine. I guess back then, precious stones were shining like the sun, not like what we have today, right? Now, did you know that the ark is likened to the Ark of the Covenant? Even though in English, they're both called the ark, but this is a teva. Noah's ark is a teva, just like Moses' ark is a teva, and the Ark of the Covenant is called Aron Habrit, Aron Ha'edut, and they all, we'll see. Hold on, but they're all related to kingship. Just like the Teva, the Ark of Moses, right? Like I said, okay, what was the deal with him? He was acting king in the wilderness over there. The Zohar brings this comparison in two places. The first is right here on the same page in Sanhedrin 108. The Gemara asks, from where did Noah know which animals were not involved in that transgression? You see, every animal was there, involved in it. Rav Chisda says, he passed them before the ark. Now remember that, okay? He passed them before the ark. This is the ark of Noah. All animals that the ark accepted, it was known that a transgression had not been performed with them, meaning they were clean. So any animal that the ark did not accept, it was known that a transgression had been performed with it. Even though, let's say they looked exactly as they did, there was no physical changes, but a different species had their way with it. Animal's not kosher. You don't want any of that stuff in a sealed boat with you. Rabbi Abahu says Noah took onto the ark only from those animals that came on their own, as it appeared that they were sent from heaven and they were certainly fit for this purpose. The second is a Masechet Yevamot 79b that says, and pay attention to the language. Okay, so remember that he brought them before the ark, Lifnei Teva. Yevamot 79b says, the Gemara continues with its understanding of the incident. And the king, this is David, right? And the king took the two sons of Ritzpah, daughter of Achiah, whom she bore unto Saul, Armoni and Mephibosheth, and the 5 sons of Michal, daughter of Saul, whom she bore to Adriel, the son of Barzillai, the Meholathite. 2 Samuel 21:8. The Gemara asks, what is different about these sons that David chose them from among the descendants of Saul? Rav Huna said, he passed all of Saul's descendants before the Ark of the Covenant. Whoever was held back by the ark so that he could not move on was condemned to death. Whoever was not held back by the ark was set apart for life. Do you see this? Where does the power of this ark or any ark come from, right? You see that. Okay, fine. So let's find out. Okay. And so we continued. We counted 365 compartments of the ark, 150 on each side, 33 and 32 on the other. In Hebrew, it's shasa, right? 365. Shin is 300, samech is 60, hey is 5, just like shasa, gidim, ve'evarim, right? So shasa is the number of sinews that we have in our body. Plus, so we got the 365, plus the 10 rooms in the middle with the food, plus the 5 openings beneath through on each side, 5 on this side and 5 over here. Okay, look what our sages did. The Radal says that within the ark itself, the very makeup of it, it represents the name of God. How so? 65, the 2 rows across the side, are the numerical value of the name Adonai. Aleph Daled Nun Yud. The letter Shin, this is what a Shin looks like. Well, whatever. Yeah, you get it. Shin is the secret of the letter Vav, because it's Vav, 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 right? That makes a Shin, which is the 3 Vavs that make the letter. So the Shin is the secret of the letter Vav. Also, it represents the 3 patriarchs. The 10 storage rooms represent the Yud, right? Yud is 10. And the 5 openings on each side represent the 2 Heys in the name. Yud, and Hey, and Vav, and Hey. And so you have Adonai Elohim within the ark, and that is how you can fit anything in there, regardless of size, into something smaller that geometrically makes no sense, which is exactly the same as the Ark of the Covenant in the Holy of Holies. The ark was a physical, tangible, and visual item, visible item. People, they picked it up. I mean, you couldn't touch it, right? But yeah, right? It's there. It took space. And yet, when it was in the Holy of Holies, it did not take up any space. What does this mean? Okay. Let's say, there's a glass of water. Let's say the water's filled up all the way until the top, and I dropped an egg in there. The water would spill out because the egg takes up space. Let's say, lahavdil, this is the Holy of Holies, and the ark is the egg. The egg goes in there, water doesn't spill out. That's what that is. Okay. How could this be? How could the ark be? How could the ark be? How could this be? Because the ark resides between the physical and the spiritual realms. It's a place that is in between. It's almost like a pocket dimension. Okay, think Mary Poppins bag, right? Small bag, she's taking out all the stuff she's taken out from the bag. It's a pocket dimension. It's like it's here, but everything comes from a different place, if you will. I don't know what else to, if we start getting to sci-fi things. Fine. Okay. And now, there was a terrible movie. What was it called? You know what? It's not even worth mentioning. Really not even worth mentioning. Okay. And now you will better understand how Noah's Ark could take it all. Rabbi Tan, and by the way, we're also called to be an ark, if you didn't get that already. In other words, we're here, but really not. We're here physically here, but really, we're elsewhere. This is how we have to be. There's only one way to do this. Rabbi Tanchuma said, Noah made the ark during 52 years. Okay, so remember, we read that thing before, and now we just broke that down, so now we're going to get back into it. For 150 years, Noah was very publicly cutting down trees, gathering the wood, and creating all the beams and panels. But only in the last 52 years did he begin to assemble the ark. So in other words, he waited as long as he could. He got everything ready, and for 52 years, he assembled the ark. The reason he took his time with this, and apparently he did take his time, was so that they should repent of their ways, say our sages. There is a commentary that says that he built it for 120 years, but our sages determined that 120 was how long it should have taken. In other words, 120, you should be done. But he went on for 150 years. But Noah really wanted to drag it out for the sake of everyone wanting to do tshuva. Whilst yet the flood had not come, the unclean animals were more numerous than the clean animals, meaning the defiled animals, if you will. But when the waters of the flood came, the Holy One, blessed be He, wished to increase the clean and to diminish the unclean. He called to Noah and said to him, Take to thee into the ark all of the clean beasts, 7 and 7. Those are already the kosher animals now, right? This is how we can get a leg up. It would seem that even some clean or kosher animals may have not been clean, if you know what I mean. Noah said to the Holy One, blessed be he, sovereign of the world, have I then the strength to collect them unto me in the ark? What now? When we read 6:19, and all the living things of the flesh, two of each, you shall bring into the ark, right? To preserve alive with you. They shall be male and female. Understandably, Noah couldn't fathom exactly how he could get this done, to which God replied, if you build it, they will come. The angels appointed over each kind went down and gathered them, and with them all their food unto him to the ark. We have discussed this. Governing angels over a speck of dust, a blade of grass, a drop of whatever. Over everything, there are angels over everything and everything. So, of course, over the animals. God said so, and yeah, this is going to happen. 6:21 says, and you take for yourself of every food that is eaten and gather it to you, and it shall be for you and for them to eat. The verse that we discussed. More specifically, ve'ata kach lecha, you take for yourself. We need to pack our own bags, or at least prepare the bags, and God is the one who will fill them. It's okay, I'm going to pack your bags. We have to do our due diligence over here. You guys are like, okay, God, do everything. I'm good. I'll just wait. No, what? Noah had to do stuff. So, what was Noah's job essentially with the animals? His whole job with the animals. Did he have to go out there and collect them? No. He had to usher them into the ark. He had to stand before the ark and say, meh, roar, and hee-haw, or whatever. He just, hey, okay, let's go. He had to welcome them to the ark. That's it. They were collected. And this question is cleared up in 7:9 that reads, 2 by 2, they came to Noah. See? They came to Noah. He was there. It says, you bring them in, and when you're standing there, bring them right in. Okay. Here's your room key, here's your room key, and so on and so forth. The reason they came was because God commanded it. Rabbi Mana said, when all the creatures had entered the ark, the Holy One, blessed be he, closed and sealed with his hand the gate of the ark, as it is said, and the Lord shut him in. Genesis 7:16. Now it says, Kol habriot literally translates as all of creation. And if you think about it, it's true. All of creation, so it says all of creation that were in the ark. All of creation literally means all of creation, because everybody else was wiped out over there. Except for 2, and meaning that were outside of the ark that actually made it through. We'll discuss this already next week. Sagar v'chatam HaKadosh Baruch Hu beyado. Closed and sealed with his hand. This is the same terminology used when the ark is closed at the end of Yom Kippur, right? We say Gmar Chatima Tova. Gmar is to finish, conclude. Chatima, sealed. Tova, good, meaning okay. And that's what we say specifically on Yom Kippur. Chatima Tova. The first one is Ktiva Tova. May you be inscribed in the book of life, and then that's for Rosh Hashanah during the 10 days, and then in Yom Kippur, especially before we close the ark, may you be sealed, shut and sealed in the book of life. And when something is sealed, meaning with the ring of the king, it cannot be broken. Furthermore, the text here doesn't say that God closed the door, but sha'ar hateva, the gate. Okay, understand that. One jewel was suspended in the ark and shed light upon all the creatures in the ark, like a lamp which gives light inside the house, and like the sun yonder, which shines in his might. Okay, sorry for the translation. As it is said, a light shalt thou make to the ark. Genesis 6:16. So that's what Safaria says. Again, don't even bother. But this is their translation. Now, I'm going to read the translation in English from the Chabad website, okay? You shall make a skylight for the ark. What does the Hebrew say? Tzohar ta'aseh lateva. We discussed what sohar is. It comes from the words tzaharaim, afternoon. Skylight? So wait a minute. So hold on a second. Did the people who built the ark today, wherever it's sitting today, did they make a skylight for the ark? Meaning it would be open? Did they have glass back then? Or no, a door? Because it doesn't say to do that. It just says tzoha, right? You might need bulletproof glass if you're going to keep something like that open, which is why this makes no sense unless you read the sage's commentary. The word they used for light, like we said, or skylight, is tzoah, which comes from the word tzoraim, which means afternoon, like the afternoon light where the sun is strongest, as in the jewel that you will place within the ark will shine like the afternoon sun. Okay, so we're going to stop here today, only because chapter 23 itself, the one that we're in, is very, very long, and it covers 3 general topics, like we said, the ark, the flood, and after the flood. So right now, next week, we're going to already start, just as they get into the ark, what's going down over there, what's hanging outside the ark, what's going on in the world then. But there's a theme here that I really hope you picked up on, especially given the times that we are currently in, okay? We're about 2 weeks out from Judgment Day, the Day of Judgment for all the world. Everyone gets judged on Rosh Hashanah. The flood is coming, and it is inevitable. However, very few of us have been given instructions on how to build this ark. The ark is that it's a place, like we said, it is between physical and spiritual. This ark that is our protection from the coming judgment. Again, you have to cleanse yourself in order so that judgment, it's not like, oh, I deserve judgment, but I'm not going to get it because I'm in the ark. It doesn't work like that. If you're clean, you go in the ark. You see? You get that? Okay, good. I weep for Israel. I, Tamir, Tamir Kreisman, my wife, we weep for Israel, for our people, when we warn them, not only of what's to come, but what's right here and now. It already began to rain, and the people are just apathetic to it. People are asleep, especially my people. Again, something's got to happen for them to wake up. I'll be honest with you. I don't know what else to do. I really don't, except what we've been doing here and behind the scenes. We're doing everything that we can, because this is not about us anymore. This is not about us. This is not about a name. This is nothing. And I say this humbly with tremendous fear right now, okay? God knows, okay? What we do and what we're doing, what we're trying to do, the purpose. Okay. The advantage that we have today over those days is that we each have an ark that we personally must build for ourselves. It's almost like you become the ark, right? My ark is not your ark, and so on. It's not like these disaster movies where you have to get to the place and they round everybody up to you. That's not what this is right now. Pinpoint accuracy. Everyone is getting exactly what is coming to them. And you don't know what kind of judgments are coming and who and what and where and how. But right now is that time that we do the cheshbon nefesh. Whatever comes up now in this month, God is showing you, you need to handle this, you need to take care of this. This is unfinished business, go deal with this, go deal with that. And you do it to the best of your ability, so when you stand before Him on Rosh Hashanah, you say, I tried. I did my best. I did my best. Here's my list. I made a list. Because you should make lists, by the way. Okay, and do tshuva on all those things and see what you can do. But when the flood ceases and the rain stops, we will emerge to a new world. And it's no coincidence that this particular topic of tshuva and missed opportunities is happening right now in the month of Elul before we enter the Day of Judgment. If you don't know what you can do, then learn from this class and last class exactly what not to do and stick with that, what to stay away from. Be a good person. Be open, be honest, okay? You don't have to love everybody, but you have to be kind. You have to understand. Again, I'm saying this to myself as well, okay? I know, trust me, I know. We've already discussed that this world is beyond saving, right? It's not about, we got to do what we can. No, this is God's fight. We're just, whose side are you going to be on? They're building the tower, fighting God, and God is going to take them out. That's it. There's nothing that we can do here except what we need to do. And all this is by perfect design. Everything is already written in the Torah. That's why we don't know exactly how it's going to happen. We have ideas. It says what's going to happen. How exactly it's going to happen, we don't know. But we're seeing it like, oh, this is how it's going to happen. Oh, here's how that's going to happen. Okay, no problem. To go against this, even to not believe in it, is to go against God. So you could see people from whether they're Orthodox or secular to just, whatever, brush these things off. And that terrifies me for them. So what's the difference between that and saying that we don't want your rain? We don't want your rain. We don't want your rain, and we don't want your rain. There's no difference. This is why we don't worry. Why? Because this is why we have no fear. Because God gives all of us a chance to build an ark before the flood. If, of course, you walk humbly and righteously before God, as Noah did, which is why he got the call. And all those who are not corrupt, get in. And all those who were, move on. Do we need any more warning signs that we haven't already gotten? When you turn on your TV now, like we said in the beginning of the class, they're actually showing you what is happening for a change because it can no longer be hidden. So this is how they're trying to spin it. So they're going to show it. Look, we're being honest, but they're putting a spin on things. You see? Look outside your window. Look at your surroundings. Look at the sky. If you don't see anything, then please pray that God opens your eyes. It's coming. You ready? Okay. So stay tuned for next week as we discuss the flood. Now what's actually going down over there. And listen, you guys just take care of yourselves, okay? Really take care of yourselves. Don't be afraid, though. That's really the main thing. You need to know the truth. Don't be afraid, though. He's got it. So thanks for joining me. Have a wonderful rest of the week, and have a Shabbat Shalom. See you next time. Bye.